Some of this.
All right, no more cursing, Mark.
Oh my gosh. Let's see how'd that go. Where's Mr. Trumpet, man? Where's Mr. Edwin Diaz? That's what I want to know. Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I'm Mark Corbett, and of course, with me is Mr. Matt Germain, co-host of this show. Jeez, hey Matt, how you doing, buddy?
I'm living the winter dream up in Canada, and I wish I was a little bit further south, to be honest.
Oh, I tell you, I woke up this morning. It was a cold 56 degrees here, brother. I mean, it probably got up to 68 or something, devilish like that. But yeah, wow.
Yeah, call me when you get below freezing. That's the that's the
Yeah,
gist of it.
yeah, that doesn't happen very often, thank goodness. But man, oh man, I tell you what, I'm a little bit on the mend from something going on here for a bit, but I you're gonna love this, Matt. I wanted to go down to see the winter meetings. It's Orlando. It's just, hop, skip, and a jump down the road. And Google Maps tries to get me somewhere, but Monday I went completely awry. By the time I'd gotten inside this hotel, it was not the one where the winter meetings were happening. I had so many other things going on that day. I wound up going back this morning. And I got to tell you, it was an interesting vibe to everything going down there at the MLB winter meetings this year. But being the little fly on the wall, if you will, it was interesting. I'm seeing John Heyman here. I'm seeing Morosi over there, Harold Raines, and all these other fellas that coming up, since I had not actually gotten credentials. I had limited access. But it was interesting, the vibe for that whole place.
I imagine there's a transition from the old days when people used to, meet in the lobby, share notes, and then everybody would end up in somebody's room and they talking and going back and forth, and whoever had the best food is the room that they ended up in, and then they got some work done or some talking or whatever networking that they're doing, and then everybody, the leftovers, the survivors, would end up back down at the bar somewhere. And then, through the night you could end up running into all kinds of you know baseball celebrities, as
Right.
people call them. So I don't know if that still happens to that extent, but some version thereof usually probably does take place.
I think you're right there. And a big part of that is you have to be invited. And I had not actually made myself invited. I tried to just kind of get around, like even the media network room wasn't really easily to get into, that sort of thing. But it was interesting to see all the setups and to hear the buzz. And I know a couple of the guys I was sitting down with earlier today, and we were talking about what was just going on with Edwin Diaz, playing the trumpet there, walking out to on the mound, and talking about how he was leaving the Mets, and then looking, Kyle Schwarber re hashtag signing, I shouldn't say hashtag, re hyphen signing with the Phillies, and well, that was interesting. I said, "What do you think happened today?" Probably not much of anything. And I heard, yes, I had heard that Pete Alonso had been seen on the premises,
Mhm.
which isn't completely surprising because, he grew up in the Tampa area. So, yeah, it could be there. And one of the most entertaining things for me yesterday was watching Brett Phillips.
Yeah, yes. I was so hoping for that, airplane mode to go off, but yeah.
I don't know what people expect from these winter meetings. To me, it's just more of about being at a certain time of year more than anything else. Because the first thing I hear is, I'm thinking the draft. And it's not really the draft. You know, it's it's the setup for the draft. And
Right.
I'm talking about looking at what positions that folks are going to get. And that was watching the whole thing saying, okay, well, I keep thinking about the movies and such when you see team after team's name is called and they have 30 seconds to make a choice for whoever's coming up now. 30 seconds, you're on the clock. Well, maybe it's more like 10 minutes in selecting a player. And that's not what happens this stage. This is one of two stages. I mean, This is pretty much selecting where you're going to be able to make your choice. Are you one, two, three? Where are you in the line of the 30 in the selections? So that's what this was really about.
Right. And to me, the winter meetings in general are more about turning the page on 2025 and refocusing everybody towards 2026, right? So they get you to do all the administrative stuff and sort out some of your roster makeup to make sure that it's cleaned up a little bit and that you have the guys taken off the injured lists and you make some adjustments to who it is that you want to keep around and who you want to protect, who you don't want to protect. And then you get to reset so this is the baseball operations, meetings really more than anything. Like I know they call
Sure.
it the GM, the winter meetings, they think it's the GMs, but it's really the baseball ops people that are putting their stamp on their new direction for next year. And you start to see that morphing, focus a lot among a lot of teams. So you mentioned Pete Alonso when he signs with the Baltimore Orioles. That's a monumental shift in the entire AL East, in the NL East. There's a whole, 5 years is a long time. And like I do, Mark, if he ages badly, they're going to move those fences back in left field. So they're not going to mess around in Baltimore. They'll give him that fence at 10 feet if they have to, and he can bunt his way across the fence. But the fun part is that now, just with that move, but the Kyle Schwarber one didn't change anything. So I
Yeah.
didn't, you don't get excited about that one. The Edwin Diaz one that you mentioned, you don't get excited about that one either because it's the Dodgers continuing to be the Dodgers. But the Pete Alonso one, those are the ones that you enjoy at the winter meetings because it brings new teams into the focus. So, example last year, right? The Blue Jays made a series of moves, and everybody was critical of them. They were like, "Oh, they continue going down the defensive route, right? They keep going, they don't have enough pop. They need to add bats, yada yada yada." But they were happy with their moves. And sure enough, it comes out that, they had a tremendous season as a result. And they had gone the season before as the bottom dwellers, like the Orioles. So can the Orioles do the same kind of thing now? They've brought in Taylor Ward, they've brought in Pete Alonso. You add in the right kind of pitching in front of those guys, and they already have an excellent pen with some guys returning as well.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, you're looking at, if some of those young, talented kids don't feel the pressure they were before Pete and Taylor got there, all of a sudden they can take off, and the whole AL East looks different at that point. And then, if you're the Yankees and you're watching this happen, and you already know the Blue Jays are going to be tough, the
Yeah.
Rays are tough every year. They figure out some way to be tough, and the Red Sox, are always going to be a pain in the butt as well. So. What do you do if you're the Yankees? How do you respond to a Pete Alonso ad, Mark?
I don't even begin to know. I mean, I've been listening to some things with Brian Cashman talking about the team, and I don't know if he's just holding his cards close to his vest because I don't see him really making any moves. He's talking about the strength of the team that they have now. But there are too many other changes going on that Yankees team has to do something. And with the Orioles adding Pete in there, they're going to have to step up. I have no idea what Brian Cashman's going to do. He certainly was very close to the vest with things or something. He was very vague. So, but my gosh, the Orioles needed this. I mean, what do they have? Like maybe 71 wins or something last year? I know it wasn't much more than that.
Yeah.
And I thought with that young team, Matt, I really thought that the Orioles were going to have a better season. I was kind of stunned, but bam, there you go.
Yeah, some of their key players took steps back that weren't really explainable, but we've said this before, and most good, baseball fans know, baseball is a series of adjustments. So
Oh
when
yeah.
you're brand new, the league is adjusting to you. And then once they're adjusted, you're the one that has to do the adjusting back. I don't think that transition for the Orioles worked out well for their players. And I don't there's where do you lay the blame in that? Is it the players? Is it the coaching? Is it the information they're fed? You have no idea. But what I
No.
do know is that the talent is still there. Like Gunnar Henderson is still an extremely talented player. Adley
Indeed.
Rutschman is still an extremely talented catcher. They're going to put the work in too. These are not lazy players.
No.
So, as soon as they start clicking and they make those right adjustments, and then they have that power and support and veteran leadership in Taylor Ward and Pete Alonso, that is the kind of stuff that really sets the tone for a good stretch of seasons, right? 5 seasons is a good amount of time for them to actually get this sorted out
Yep.
and put themselves in contention at some point. Doesn't mean it has to happen this year, but it's a step forward. And now, if you're a free agent and you saw all those additions, especially if you're a free agent pitcher, like, oh, well, guess what? My guys are going to put some runs on the board now. Maybe I'm curious about this team, and they don't really have to get the top-notch guys. But let's say Max Scherzer wants to continue pitching and isn't happy that the Blue Jays are willing to wanting to bring him back, right? They don't want him. They made other plans. They brought in Cody Ponce. They brought in Dylan Cease. Maybe he says, you know what? I'll join this upstart Orioles team and I'll give him a little boost. You have a couple of other guys that are still out there on the free agent market, like Zac Gallen, that could join the fray. They have enough money. I think before this offseason started, they had like almost zero in terms of commitments after 2027. In the past, they spent up to like 180 million in a season, I think, or somewhere there's abouts. So they've got money to spend. Like they've been gun shy ever since the Chris Davis days. But that was the old ownership, right? They've got new billionaires. They got, so now they have the money to do it. And now they just kind of have to put the right pieces in play and make themselves. I would love to talk more often about the Orioles during the season, Mark, like as a contender, right?
Yeah.
It would be refreshing. The same as the Pirates. That's the other team I was hoping that Pete Alonso would go to, because I think he would have been really excellent behind O'Neal Cruz. And once they get their new, stud shortstop coming up through the ranks, that would have been the perfect trio of guys to lead them um, through the future and possibly entice Paul Skenes to stick around longer than he otherwise might.
Yeah. If you're going to keep that kind of talent, you've got to build other talent around him. And I saw this afternoon one rumor that the Pirates may be pursuing Brandon Lau.
Hmm.
And wow, that could give them a sense of a veteran on the team and put him out on a field that's not astroturf all the time, 82 games a year. So that could be benefiting both of them. I wonder if that's something that's real, if that's just somebody banding that about right now.
Well, the interesting part is that, cost balancing is like I just said with the Orioles, the Pittsburgh Pirates have no commitments after this year, like almost zero. I think it's Brian Reynolds and one other person that they have on the books after this year. So they had a clean slate as well to work with. So Brandon Lau to me doesn't fit as well for them as like a Tel Marte would.
Yeah.
If they're wanting to be really aggressive, because Paul Skenes is going to want somebody that's there beyond the time that he's signed for, right? And he's going to want somebody that's actually able to stay on the field. And Brandon Lau's health is a little bit up and down. He's more of a DH. But the interesting part with both of them is that the Pirates have unproven second base talents and some that are struggling as prospects that both of those teams might be willing to bank on. So for the Rays, if you're able to get Nick York as a return, he's still MLB caliber, but he's not proven and he's not really anywhere near the standard that Brandon Lau would be. But you also get 7 years of control, or 6 years, I think. So the same thing with Tamar Johnson, who's a guy that played in Double A, who's a very highly drafted player, highly skilled, but 21, 22 years old. He's going to be, needing some more development before he reaches, the upper echelons. Would the D-backs be willing to take that on if they're also getting a really strong starting pitcher with him? Because that's what they're looking for, is affordable starting pitching. And they've been bitten by so many pitchers recently. It's
Yeah.
crazy. They've had some bad luck. So, those are moves that the Pirates, should be looking to make. They did make one move, which was to add Gregory Soto. He's a left-handed reliever, and I had mentioned him as one of the three guys that I thought they should target this offseason. The other one was Zach Littell. And I thought that that would be a perfect fit to take some pressure off of their pitching staff if they do end up using one of those pitchers to go and get another bat, which I still think they need.
Well, looking at the Pirates overall too, Matt, one of the things I'm always kind of curious about is the what they have for payroll, and I think it's around $90 million, a little more than that.
Mm.
That puts them, I think, around 28th out of the 30 teams. So I don't think they're going to have the commitment of a Steve Cohen with the, but there's definitely they have an owner now who's willing to put up some money that more than what's been there in the past. It's, I'm thinking actually of Orioles that has somebody put in more than
Right.
in the past.
I just wanted to mention one more thing
Please.
about the Pirates. So they had on many occasions, they've had up to 2.5 million fans come through the gates, right?
Right.
And so that was the years where they had success, where they had invested a little bit. It was 2015, the last time that they had 2.5. Before that, there was another season that they reached that point. They've been 2.4 a couple of times. But last year, they were at 1.5. So my question to you is, how much money would 1 million fans coming through the turn gates add to your team? So if you're able to make the move to add 1 million fans, right? Let's average it out to be nice and clean and easy. Let's say that you pocket $30 for every fan that comes through the gates,
Right.
right? If you want to add a player that's $30 million, you're essentially saying, I'm thinking that we're going to add 1 million fans through the turn gates by adding this player. Would Pete Alonso have done that?
Oh my, yeah.
No doubt.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No doubt. And they probably would have exceeded that. Like, so that's my soapbox piece to all those owners that are gripping on to this money that hasn't been realized, and they're probably banking less than they would if they spent more. And the Dodgers are proof of that, and other teams, the Blue Jays are proof of that. And if you're in a situation like the Pirates are, where now you've accumulated the top draft picks, you have the stud shortstop and you have the stud pitcher, generational talents at both positions. Now is the time to invest around them and start drawing people into the stands to watch these guys to make them interested to stick around long term. Because Paul Skenes looks into the crowd. If he sees that the stadium is half empty every day, why is he going to want to stay there? As nice a guy as he might be, he's going to say, you know what, I'm offered more money somewhere else. There's more people in the stands in that place where I'm going. Why would I stick around? Like I'm Mr. Nice Guy, yeah, but I'm not gonna sacrifice my entire career playing in front of less people. When I think of that, I think of Roy Halladay in Toronto, right? For 10 years under JP Ricciardi, he lost his career basically, where they weren't adding the depth they needed. They were never building around him. They were just basically letting everybody come through the turnstiles and selling tickets, and that was it. And he had to go to Philadelphia in the end just to get a chance to be in the playoffs. That is sad. Like I want to see Paul Skenes in the playoffs like continuously all the way through his career, right? To see what he might be able to manage. So I hope that they get that message in Pittsburgh and elsewhere.
Well, I like, I mean, you're pointing it out very clearly what the cost of that player and what that would mean as far as the turnstiles, the amount of money that's going to come in there. And then when you think of going to the merchandising, my gosh, how much more money comes with that? The traffic of what Paul Skenes has been able to do for that team, the enthusiasm it builds up within the fan base. But I keep thinking of Mike Trout with, I mean, it's great when he had Shohei Ohtani there, but they have not been able to do with the talent of Mike Trout. There's never been enough around him to build a stronger team that he should have had, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm fearful that that will be the same with the Pirates and Paul Skenes.
Yeah, they have to make the smart investments. I do think they have the intelligence to target the right guys. I just don't know how willing the owner will be to open up the pocketbooks. Like right now, we know they were in on Kyle Schwarber, right? It was sort of like the same way that the Rays, chased down Freddie Freeman, where it wasn't so much more that he couldn't say no.
Right.
So at the time, if the Rays were offering, I think 150, right, to Freddie Freeman or somewhere there's about, and so if they had gone to 180, they would have had the player.
Hmm.
Where would the Rays be right now if they had Freddie Freeman that entire time? You know, so what's the opportunity cost of not bringing in Freddie Freeman? Now, obviously, last year wasn't much because the stadium issue was a little bit different. But normally, you more than likely would have filled the trop, right? And opened up the top, you kind of get more people in the seats and the excitement, just the buzz around the team, right? Like I saw clearly what the excitement and the ramp up for the Blue Jays meant when Alex Anthopoulos got them in the playoffs for
Yeah.
those 2, 3 years. And I got 4 million fans through the turnstiles. They got rid of Alex, and all of a sudden, whoo, the team went down and they got all the way back down under 2 million. So, you're talking like that's a huge, income stream drop. So it's, yes, they're back there now, but again, that comes through smart investments, getting the right front office together. I would love to see the Pirates really focus on getting a group of players together that can grow together for a long time and extend them. So, like, spend the money now on the guys to stick around. If you have to overpay, overpay. It's hard to do with a pitcher like Paul Skenes because we've all, I don't know if you have that memory, but I have that memory of Mark Pryor, right? Mark Pryor was Paul Skenes before Paul Skenes. He was that dominant. Him and Kerry Wood were going to carry the Cubs forever. That was the talk, right? And none of them lasted more than 4 or 5 years. Like Mark Pryor, I think was 2 years. So you don't want to be that guy holding on to that salary for 9 years when you only had a certain amount of time. So it's hard to invest long term. But we saw the Yankees do it with Jarrett Cole. They bit the bullet, for that 1 year that they knew he was going to be on Tommy John.
You're
And
right.
now they know they're going to get him back. And for Paul Skeens, he's young enough that if you lose a year or two here or there, that's just part of the fact of being part of baseball, right? That's it.
That's definitely the case. I mean, we know we've talked time and again as far as the life of a pitcher and burning up arms. And that's kind of built into whenever a contract's there, the owners of those teams, the general manager, that has to be part of the equation in their head. It's a possibility, and certainly how you use that arm is going to make the big difference with that. So, and was it with Jane Levy we had on here a while back on Talking Again, where she had some conversations where she'd spoken with people in the Rays, and they were just like, "Let's burn them up, moot, just use those arms until they're done, and we'll put the next one in." And that has to be part of the strategy when you're working a contract with a player like that, with a pitcher like that. So I don't think we'll see much change in that approach, but it is interesting to understand now that that is just an accepted part of the methodology and negotiations and realizing, guess what? Yes, we're signing this guy a pitcher for 5, 6 years, whatever. Hopefully we'll get 3 or 4 of those years out. I mean, hopefully 5 or 6, but what can happen?
Where do you think Kyle Tucker is going to land?
Oh, brother. I mean, you and I talked about this before. I'd love to see him here. I really, really would. I'd absolutely him or Alonso, either one. I mean, obviously Alonso came, we would have to see Diaz go, and probably a couple of others. Um, but where do I think he'll actually wind up? I don't think it'll be the Dodgers. You never
I
know.
never count them out, but I think, them and the Blue Jays are playing a tug of war between them, I think.
Yeah,
And I think the Mets might get desperate enough now that what's happened has happened.
yeah,
Uh, there's a chance that they can look at it in a lot of different ways. So Carson Bench is one of their top prospects. He is ready, pretty shortly into 2026 to be at the major league level. So if you bring in a Kyle Tucker, right, and this might explain why they sent Brandon Nemo out, then you're talking about your two corners set. Well, okay, well, what do you do with Juan Soto at that point? If I Carson Bench can probably handle center field, but then you're talking all the other top prospects that they have. So I think there's a lot of, I would call it the Bermuda Triangle of Kyle Tucker, where I would say New York Mets, Toronto Blue Jays, Los Angeles Dodgers will all make really good cases. And really, he's in a great position right now to extract maximum dollars. The Dodgers aren't gonna, I don't want to say they're not gonna overspend because they will, obviously, but I don't think they're as desperate as the Blue Jays and the Mets are. And I say the Blue Jays are desperate not because they don't have talent and they can't be good, but because they're seeing the aging of George Springer and
Ah,
they want that next person to be there in place. And I don't think they have it in the organization. Their top prospects are not to that caliber. They're not, you know, guys that you want to build your franchise around. And you didn't sign Vladdy Guerrero Jr. to the $500 million deal to not have him have a good amount of, core talent around him. So I think for the Blue Jays, it might be a case of do we bite the bullet on Bo Bichette and go with Kyle Tucker instead? Because Kyle Tucker has less health concerns than Bo Bichette does overall. And I don't know how much you know about Bo Bichette's medical issues, but they're kind of significant. They're a little bit like Brandon Lau's, where I don't want to say they're close to career ending, but concussion wise, he's had a lot of concussions.
yeah.
He's had a lot of different issues. So it's hard to throw money like that at a player like that who may not even be insurable to the same degree as other players might be. Um, anyways, so Kyle Tucker in Toronto would give them that renewed core with a lot of length, and you've seen Addison Barger take a step forward. So if he can actually continue to be part of that core group, then all of a sudden you're lengthening that amount of time that you're going to be one of the top teams in the league. For so I think the Mets though, like the Mets just lost Edwin Diaz. They lost Pete Alonso. Everybody is tearing them to shreds. Now, to their credit, they did bring in Devin Williams, which quells a lot of questions when it comes to the pen side. Okay, so that's a good point. Like that, you don't want to have so many losses that your fans just completely rebel against you. But I think the front office generally has a lot of unanswered questions. What I heard is that their pitching coach was really well liked, and he went to the Braves recently.
Hmm.
And that was one of the reasons why Edwin Diaz decided not to go with the Mets. It wasn't completely related to, the whole Devin Williams being there or the money not being there. So it's kind of an intriguing way to look at things, right? You never really know what's going on inside the clubhouse. You don't really know what it is that they're valuing, but maybe Edwin Diaz had a different relationship or a strong relationship with the pitching coach. And he now that pitching coach is in Atlanta. So he decides, hey, you know what? If I need to change things up, I'll go and do it with somewhere else. And he wanted to do it in LA. But the Mets need to make a minimum of three big deals if they're going to get their fans back on side. Um, Even if they decide to try to sell that youth movement, but they did bring in Marcus Semien. So
Yeah.
Marcus Semien, stronger second base guy. I think that points to Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil were best friends. Maybe now's the time to let go of Jeff McNeil and find him a new home. And then you're doing a whole transition and cleansing the aura of the team. Because to be honest, like they were one of the biggest underperformers in the second half, the biggest tail off that we've seen in recent times when it comes to a team that with that much talent and not being able to pull it out. I mean, that hurts. That's like everybody in that on that team felt that one. So I get the wanting to make changes and getting fresh blood. And even if it is young guys that struggle a little bit, that might be good. Like that might be what they need.
Get some hungry players in there. Yeah, I don't think anybody anticipated to see the Mets have a couple of spots where they just fell. I mean, maybe was it, I think at least 7 games in a row at one point during the season. And it's like they lost that many. It's like, good gravy. Who is this team? Because I mean, everybody had high expectations and still do. And I don't think it was a lack of a team spirit or anything like that. It's just baseball, as we say sometimes, because it happens. Whether it be injuries, whether it just be a streak, whether it's everybody else is out there is coming for you harder than they ever have before. You know, it was a tough season for the Mets. And you're right. After seeing Diaz go out the door and seeing Alonso go out the door, and who was the person you said they added? The
Marcus Semien
Marcus
and
Simeon.
Devin Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, some good things are happening coming in too. But wow, those are two big names going out the door, and I don't know how they're going to do because with Pete's bats and hitting those home runs, man, there's few out there that can do what he's doing.
Right. So this is where I like to, when you look at I'll give a perfect example. The Athletics, right? How did they end up competing last year? Who was the rookie of the year, right? And where did he come from? What did he do? Like, you're talking about Nick Kurtz coming out of nowhere. Nobody talked about this
Yeah.
guy before the season started. Nobody knew his name. He goes out there, and the most that he had hit before that was 7 home runs in AAA, right? That was the most that he'd ever hit in the minors. And then he comes out as a rookie and hits 36 home runs, drives in 90 runs. He had a 170 or a WRC plus. So when you're talking about somebody like Carson Bench, right? This is the time when the prospects gurus can start making sense of a lot of these moves that teams are making. Like last year is a perfect example. I had a conversation with somebody online, a very, very very well-known reporter who was always tearing down what the Brewers do in the offseason. And I'm like, listen, this is why they're doing it, right? It was about the Caleb Durbin and Devin Williams move. And they said Caleb Durbin is a heck of a player. He's an energizer guy. I've seen him play against the Bulls. He's always the guy that you're having the toughest guy time against. He's pesky, great at bats. He's always using his speed. He's got some pop. I said, they're going to love him in Milwaukee. And I said, I guarantee you, they're not going to keep Devin Williams around as long, wherever he goes, as Caleb Durbin will in Milwaukee. And sure enough, this is what's breaking out. Because when you know the prospects, some of the moves that people do make sense, right? So Carson Bench is not really a top 10 or 20 prospect. But to put it in a different way, Carson Williams was, and he's not guaranteed a job to begin the season next year. So it shows you what the rankings mean, right? Overall. But Carson Bench hit 15 home runs last year, but the key parts are that his walk rate was over 13% and his strikeout rate was 17%. So he does not strike out much. He makes
Wow.
contact. He's a little bit like Chandler Simpson, but with power. So if you look at it that way, in terms of like his at bat approach and his ability to make contact, it's not as elite as Chandler, just because Chandler just gets a stick on the ball, but it's really strong for a guy that has power. So if you're able to maintain like an ISO over 200 isolated power, and you're able to keep your strikeout percentages below 20%, like you're doing an outstanding job, and you're going to
Yeah.
be somebody that's going to be in the lineup constantly, right? So Carson Benj is that kind of impact. Now he's only done it up to the double A and triple A level, and triple A, I think he only ended up getting maybe 100 plate appearances ish, but that is enough time for him to be in consideration when you start the season, in my opinion. Some guys skip over when they're really talented, triple A. So the Mets have those kinds of guys, and they also have another guy called Jet Williams, who's an impact guy eventually, but he's had a little bit more struggles overall than Carson Bench has. The fans are a little bit critical of him. He's a little bit lighter hitting than Carson, so they don't really take to him as much. But again, he's a guy that has a really high ceiling who can help carry the team and lengthen it, in the bottom of the parts of the lineup. And like you mentioned just before, the energy that these guys bring, right? We saw
Right.
with the Rays last year, right? The guys who had the most energy were the guys that gave you the best moments through the season, right? They just seem to have that sandlot enthusiasm that we love about baseball that just gets you, into the game. So the Mets need more of that. That's what I think was partially lacking last year when you were watching the team. They were just going through the motions. They were not really excited to be playing the game from what I saw. And
Hmm.
Francisco Lindor will feed off of that. He's that kind of personality where, I think when he plays the game, he actually truly loves it. And so if you're that kind of person who's passionate about the game, and the Griffey Jr. comes to mind when I think of Francisco Lindor, like
Yeah.
just they have that smile that, that just tells you they're having fun and they're joking around and they're just at ease. They're at work, they're having fun. So I think that all the changes they're making is going to benefit Francisco Lindor tremendously. And it's going to get him to have a different outlook on the game and a different energy and possibly get them back on track.
I can't wait to see it because the one thing, like I said, when Steve Cohen came in, it was spending all that money with the Mets. I'm a little critical. I mean, it's easy to be critical of somebody infusing all that much cash. But you and I've talked about this before. Said the man is a baseball fan, and he wanted his team to win, and he was going to do everything he could as an owner to support that team and do what he could to help build the team to win a championship. And I think he and his wife still have that mindset. They're really the co-owners, isn't just Steve. But that has enthused me. And as far as keeping the Sandlot energy that you're talking about,
Mhm.
that's something that has to come from the players and the manager. I mean, and obviously from the front office too. But if there isn't something completely driving these folks, it's gonna fall away. I mean, we've talked about glue guys, we've talked about clubhouse guys in the past, and who do you see in the Mets organization that could be that person? Is there anyone in particular that jumps out to you and you say,
Oh man, that is a good question because I think, like I mentioned, Francisco Lindor, he's just an easy target because everybody
yeah?
knows him and he's kind of,
But
you know,
beyond him, is that it?
you can't. No, I think that's why they brought in Marcus Semien, to be honest,
Yeah.
because you do have to. I think, okay, this is going to sound weird, but why are Terry Francona and Kevin Cash great managers? It's because they're humble, right? They're
They-
humble, and because of that, they're relatable. So it makes them approachable, and people can actually, relate to them without feeling like somebody is overbearing. So if you were to have Joe Torre in there instead, as an
yeah.
example, right? There's a certain aura, there's a certain, dude, can I approach him? Like if you're a rookie and you show up and Joe Torre's on the bench, like are you really going up to him and joking around and putting gum on his hat? No, you're not. You're not doing that, right? So there's certain guys that have that kind of aura. And I think Marcus Semien, having had all the struggles he had to, working day in, day out with Ron Washington just to get himself a playing time in Major League Baseball, make himself a regular, like that is what feeds the machine. That's why they went and targeted him. I firmly
Yeah.
believe that is that they were sick and tired of watching the guys that weren't really going out there and giving it their all. Watching Jeff McNeil play defensive, second base is painful. He barely puts any effort into it from what I can tell. He reaches a little bit, never dives. He kind of gives up on balls easy. That's not the guy that you want churning the machine in your infield. So I want the guy that's going to lay out like and really put in the work to be in the right positions and go the extra mile. So if you're going to set the tone like that, that was a in that sense, but I don't know what Brendan Nimmo was. That's the other question, right? So that's where I kind of say, okay, well, yeah, you're not really flipping Marcus Semien for Jeff McNeil. You're flipping Marcus Semien for Brandon Nimmo.
Ah,
So what was Nimmo's role in the team? How vocal was he? Was he enthusiastic and effort? From what I could tell, he put in a lot of effort. He did dive. He did play a strong left field. So again, it comes down to what is that plan? Is it going, if they sign Kyle Tucker, it all makes sense. Right? And so if you've added Kyle Tucker and you've added Marcus Semien, then you've really changed the personality of your team significantly. Now, how much would they have to give Kyle Tucker to beat out the Blue Jays and the Dodgers? Like, are we talking? So Vladdy Guerrero Jr. got 500 million. Is Kyle Tucker really getting that much? You know,
I don't know. I think we keep hearing about setting ceilings and floors, and I don't know that that's going to actually impact what people are going to pay. If Kyle Tucker, he's a game changer. He's somebody who could make a difference. I think he could earn that. The thing of it is, I think that what happened with Vladdy had to happen. That amount had to be paid. The Blue Jays, that if they had let him go, that would have just disturbed the whole apple cart, for Toronto for I think for years to come. And you were talking about how much the turnstile keeps rotating, and by having Vladdy Jr., yeah, it's still turning. But if he wasn't there, it would slow down a great deal. Um,
right.
so Cal should be able to pretty much come up with whatever he wants.
I think the big question that I asked myself is, okay, Vlad Guerrero Jr. signed at 27. Kyle Tucker is 29. He plays
Yeah.
the outfield. That bases, a lot of his production on running. So how many years are you giving Kyle compared to what Vladdy got? That it changes the amount significantly. So let's
Mhm.
just say, let's go with average annual value. Is he going to get more than Kyle Schwarber and Pete Alonso got?
I would think, actually, I think that he could. I really do. And I think because if I'm looking at Schwarber and I'm looking at Alonso, both of them are a few years older, I believe, than Kyle. And that would be
Yeah.
one reason.
And he's been consistent, right? 4 years, Kyle Tucker has been unwavering, pretty consistent all the way through.
Absolutely.
So that helps. So I agree. I think it would be somewhere closer to 35 million per year, right? So if we go 35 million per year, we say 8 years. Is that about accurate? You get him to
Uh,
37?
I don't know if you're going to give anybody 8 years. I mean, there's so much fresh meat coming up through the system all the time. Is there going to be somebody else? Is that expansion? Well, we all know that we pay players sometimes more than we actually expect to give them for a single year. We give them a longer term. So I think 6 to 7 would probably be more reasonable.
Around 6, 7.
7 might be the lowest that I could see it. That to me, because you're talking the Dodgers, Blue Jays, and Mets
True.
playing tug of war. So how do you get that edge? Like if you're all offering pretty much 35 million-ish, and Dodgers might defer some to 21.45, I have no idea. But it's one of those things where you say, okay, 35 years, let's say it is 7 years, then you're looking at 245 million. I think that's close. There's a recent contract that was 245. I don't know. For some reason, I think he gets the eighth year or he gets, the option year with a big buyout, one or the other.
Mm,
Like maybe something like that. Just because his agent now knows all the big pieces are off the table and he gets to play each team against one another. So it's pretty early in the season for that to have taken place hitter wise.
yeah.
So I like that part. Like that's good because we might go into Christmas with some teams having all the bigger pieces sorted out, right? So I don't know. If I had to put a bet on it, I would say he gets 265 million. That's the number that I think he gets. So I don't think unless a team loses their minds and gives them 10 years, right? And like that's where I get into the whole Dodgers are nuts kind of thing. So I never would have given, Shohei Ohtani all the years that they gave him, but then you probably, risk not getting the player. So I think the years are going to be what shocks people more than anything when it comes to Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, yeah, I see that. One of the things though, reflecting on a fellow alumni, because I said something about this in a post earlier today, both he and Pete Alonso went to Plant High School in Tampa, and mentioned also Wade Boggs. But coming back to Alonso for a moment, Alonso probably could have made annually about the same as what he's going to get now with those. But the big difference, I believe, was that the Mets were only going to look at him for maybe 3 more years with the
Right.
contract.
Yeah.
So Kyle Tucker, yeah, yeah, he's a bit younger. He's as you pointed out, he has certainly been more consistent than some of the others out there. So we'll see what comes. I'm excited about him too.
I don't know. It's hard to get excited for teams that spend that much money.
No, I'm excited for the players. The
Yeah.
teams themselves, like, yeah, no, Dodgers and such. No, I can't get excited about that. And kind of jumping away from this for just a minute, there was something that was said this past week I found interesting, and that was Dave Roberts. Uh,
Mm.
did you see some comments? Because somebody was saying they got him to speak to the whole,
So
yeah, exactly, salary caps and floors, and he was just very honest about it. He said, "Yeah, I think there should be. I think there should be." He said, "Same time, I think there should be a floor." And I thought I tap my hat and salute to him for being honest about that. And I think that his players know who he is. They may disagree with some of this, and I'm sure many agents do, but I was glad to see him step out and say that.
So just like I know we've talked about this subject before with Lou and with other people and just on our own, but if you want labor peace in major leagues,
Yeah.
right? And to grow the game as positively and long term as possible, you want a salary cap in there. You want a salary floor and you want the books open. Those are, to me, those are all combined into one. You can't have any of them without the other because if you only have a cap in and teams are going to still underspend, that doesn't solve anything. The lottery, like we talked about, and then the Rays got the second pick, which was outstanding. Love it. But, the lottery doesn't really fix all of the tanking because you just saw the White Sox still got the top pick by tanking. So the salary floor to me, we kind of threw out a lot of crazy ideas in terms of relegating teams and all that kind of stuff. But in truth, the only one that owners right now that are in play, they're not going to risk their franchise going down a tier. They're going to be more apt to be open to opening up the books, in my opinion, if they truly are being honest and want a salary cap in place. But, there's also there's also the caveat in there that they might want a salary cap just so that they can set the ceiling
Mm,
without opening up all the books because they want their cake and they want to eat it too. And these billionaires didn't get bit to be billionaires by not scraping together a few pennies. Like they really know how to play the game. So let's say, for instance, if they're getting 65% of the money now and the players are getting 35%, well, they're going to set a salary cap to maintain that or improve it. They might put the salary cap in so that the players end up getting 34%, 33%, 32%, whatever, because the books aren't open, nobody really knows how much
yeah.
gambling money are they making, how much this, how much that, like there's a lot of unknowns that are in play here that I don't think people are really fully digesting. Like the gambling alone, Mark, is got to be ridiculous. Like they've got such a tight grip on it that
Yeah.
I don't know. Like to me, like if I'm MLBPA, I talk to the guys before they sit down for the CBA talks, and I say, listen, guys, you guys are not getting 50% right now of the revenues, right? Do you want to get 50% of the revenues? If you do, then say you're open to the to the salary cap if they open the books. And then you don't have to worry about it. You put all the pressure on the owners. To me, if I truly believe, if I'm MLBPA and that's the case, and I truly believe that is the way that it's being run right now, that is the only strategy that will probably prevent a work stoppage. If not, we will have a work stoppage.
Wow. I don't like to hear that, but yeah, we know the reality is there, Matt.
Mm.
And oh my goodness. Hey, how about spreading a little Christmas cheer?
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Oh, oh, so you guys, you've hung all the tinsel around your home there, the Germain household, haven't you?
Yes, we did. We have three Christmas trees.
Oh,
So
wow.
we've got the one in the living room and the one in the living room and the one upstairs in the main window are both real trees. So we go and pick them out in at Thanksgiving, which for us is October. and we put a little tag on it that says, this is the tree that we picked out. We don't venture off into the woods like Christmas vacation style, like, with a no axe and whatever, but we do go into the woods and it's just right off the road. And oddly enough, my wife and I always end up picking a tree that's uh, within maybe 50 yards of one another. And so I think this has been going on now for like 8 or 9 years. We always seem to find the perfect tree in that area. We haven't, and the lot is way bigger than that. Like we could go and make a whole day of it if we wanted to. But no, we always seem to find the right one there. So we've kind of gravitated to that. And then the one upstairs is just a smaller version of that. And then we have a fake tree in the playroom for the kids. And I think there's a year where we kept it up the entire year, where it became a decoration.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so, I think too, when I hear about the trees, of course, we got all the palm trees around here and they don't like us cutting those down. No, seriously though, the Lance McCullers, the pitcher for the Astros and his father, well, he was junior and his father, Lance McCullers, they, I believe, have a Christmas tree farm.
Oh.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of young ball players around here as they were growing up. Many of them would work during this time of year, would work over and help sell trees from the McCullers farm out at some little road stops around here. I don't know if they're still doing that or not, but I thought that was kind of cool.
There's so many cool traditions that come from Christmas. That's really the kind of stuff that I love. Like we've added a few here and a few there, and some of them have grown. Like we make wreaths. So my in-laws have a garage, and they set up the wood stove in there, and they chop down a whole bunch of the pieces that you need to make a wreath, and
Right.
then we put on Christmas tunes and we just basically go at it and take pictures, and it's kind of like one of those, you're doing it as a family and you're doing it from scratch and you're kind of, spending some easygoing time without the iPads and the TV and whatever else together. So it's unique, and those are the kinds of things that I think I love most about the holidays is more like when you're actually playing the board games, you're eating the
Yeah.
good food and you're relaxing. That's the good stuff.
Yeah, that's we enjoy that as well. We actually gathered the family up in Louisville, Kentucky, get an Airbnb up there, large enough for all of us, and a lot of games. A lot of games are played. And hey, have you ever played the one where it may have talked to you about this before? It's basically a cellophane ball, and you take the cellophane or handy wrap or whatever. And what's that? Saran wrap. Getting the balls over here. Told me saran wrap,
Yeah.
and you in the middle of the saran wrap, you put a couple of things. Maybe I don't know, $20 lottery ticket or maybe a $20 gift card somewhere. And then as you roll that in the center. Then outside that, you continue to roll, and then you put candies and you put all kinds of little trinkets that you buy from the dollar store,
Yeah.
little gadgets here and there. And the whole thing it is wrapped several times over to where it maybe started not any bigger than your fist, but it's larger than a soccer ball in some cases, maybe even a basketball size. And you have to peel, it's put out in the middle of the table. So all the family members gather around and they peel that thing away one at a time. But there's a time limit on it. It's not actually a time limit. So say if there's eight of you standing around the table, the person who's tearing it, the person next to them has some dice. And Karen, what do they got to roll? Doubles? Yeah, you roll doubles anything, then it's your turn. So they grab the ball. As soon as they roll doubles, they grab the saran wrap ball and they start tearing. And the next person starts rolling and rolling. And whatever they tear it comes out, that is their prize until it goes all the way around. And the final prize, as it's finally unwrapped, they get that gift as well, plus the privilege of creating that ball for the next year.
That is awesome. I like that. We've done the version where you do it with gift wrap, and like for the kids' birthday,
Ah,
and they wrap the box a whole bunch of times or whatever the gift might be, and you just never know when you're gonna get the bottom layer. But not there's only the one gift. There's not all the gifts that you're talking about. I like that version. Just don't tell an environmentalist that you're using a whole bunch of stuff
no, 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 no,
to
no,
do
no.
this stuff.
No, surely not. We take it down to the recycle center the next day, I'll have you know. So
Yeah, there you go. No, that's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
No, I love the concept. It's really good. And how much I don't know, we're talking about prices for Christmas gifts and everything else so far. Like, you're talking about $20 a layer. You get a ball with like 8 or 9 or 10 layers. That thing is worth, so who's putting it together and who decides what the prices are?
Well, probably don't put any more than $50 into it.
Okay.
And in the center, you probably have a $20 gift certificate, or it could be more. But layer after layer, you're putting candies in there. You're putting in, all kinds of just trinkets, little store items that you would probably get out of a gum machine. I mean, because you have so many layers, there's probably 30 or 40 things that will fall out of there by the time you completed all of it. I mean, you may have a couple of Reese's chips or what, I mean, Reese's cups. Just it's insane. Something's always falling out onto the table or the
You've
floor.
inspired me, Mark. I think I'm gonna do it. Gonna do it, and I'll tell you how it goes. And like I said, I'm always on the lookout for new traditions and something. My kids are still young enough, 16 and 12. They'll get a kick out of it. Some of the other guys that are going to be there are kids at heart. I guess is the best way to put it. And so I think it'll get a good run. We did the chicken feet socks one year where everybody wore the socks, where it looks like chicken feet and you have to wear the socks over your pants. And so
What?
yeah, and so the socks go right up to your knee.
Jeez.
It looked hilarious.
Oh, brother. Hang on, I got some. What was that you were saying over, Karen? Oh, that's right. As far as the center gifts, you're saying that the lottery tickets are sometimes little mini booze bottles put in there too. So,
Keep the kids away from those.
yeah, well, all ours, our youngest one's 25 in this family. So, there we go.
Sounds good.
No, no, it's all fun, my friend. I'll send you a video on some of it because it's insane, it's stupid, and it's fun, fun, fun. But well, you got any other goodies we want to make sure we share with folks this holiday season?
No, the deals are going to keep coming, and like we mentioned with the Mets and everybody else, just don't jump off the bridge about any of these franchises. Let them get their plans together,
That's
and
right.
we'll just keep digesting them as they go. But enjoy the holidays, drive safe. Don't drink and drive like everybody always says. Don't gamble at all, and you'll have a good holiday.
That sounds all right. We got a few more weeks before it's here. And Matt, thanks again, buddy. I appreciate you hanging around and always love our conversations, my friend.
That's awesome. I'm always glad to be here, and hopefully the Rays add a few interesting nuggets before the next time we talk.
Let's hope so, my friend. All right. Well, thank you all again for joining us here today on Baseball Biz on Deck. Want to wish you a festive month and a month of giving. And thank you all for joining us. We'll talk with you again real soon.
You have been listening to Baseball Biz on Deck. Just a reminder, if you enjoyed this show, go ahead, like, and subscribe to Baseball Biz on Deck. Also, you can find Matt at matgermain.b skysocial. That's Matt at matgermain.b skysocial, or Mark at baseballbizondeck.b skysocial. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck at iHeart, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com.